Merry morning. We're very happy to welcome you to the Home Care and Hospice Association of Utah, or what we lovingly call HHAU. My name's Marjane. I'm with Premier Funeral Services, and we're hosting the event today, and we'd love for you to come to our facility anytime. And our meetings will be held here and with Zoom, whatever makes you comfortable. And I'd like to introduce my co-chair, Elizabeth Squire, and she'll introduce our speaker today. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. Such an honor. We are extremely excited to have Tiffany. It is an extreme honor to have you, a remarkable person of valor and such dignified person. Beside that, if you are looking to have CE credits, please personal message me and put in there your name and your title, your email address. I will put that in the chat as well, what you need to put in there for those CE credits. If you do have any comments or questions, everyone is currently on mute. Please also put into the chat any questions. You can put that open to everyone. If you want to put all of your information to everyone, that's great too, or if not, just personal IME. Thank you, and Tiffany, thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. I'm glad that I made it, actually. As I was driving, I'm driving down the freeway, and here in Utah, you know, they've just added this new turnoff to 215 east from I-15 if you're going north. Many of you know what I'm talking about. It's really early, and it's far earlier than I thought on the freeway. So I'm driving, and I had just messaged Elizabeth, hey, I'm going to be there at this time. And I'm driving, and all of a sudden I realized, oh, there goes the exit that I need. I know you've probably been there too, right? So of course I say, Siri, text Elizabeth, I'm going to be about 15 minutes later than I thought. And it made me laugh because my whole point in teaching what I'm going to teach you today is that we can recalculate at any point in our lives. And even though I just kind of did the Mrs. Utah wave as the exit passed me, what I understand is that we are in the right place at the right time. And even though we might have those situational Tourette's moments where we want to stomp our feet and swear a lot, the reality is that this is the gift. This is the present. And what we're going to talk about today is how do we have this amazing, freaking awesome life, even when we miss our exit, even when things happen that we don't love. And then how do we process ourselves in a way that brings us to that wholeness in our lives that we really want. So I'm going to share a little bit about my story, how I became a chaplain and why that's so important. Currently, I am a full-time chaplain for Moniker and Tender Care Hospice, which I love. I also do a lot of speaking and helping other authors to speak and write their stories. Why that's significant is that I had been doing a lot of this coaching and speaking years ago, and my husband was diagnosed terminal with cancer, and it was through that experience that I became connected with chaplaincy. And so it's been about 12 years that I've been a chaplain, and what a learning experience that has been in my life. And as I look at it now, I think, oh my goodness, I have the best life, even with those tragedies that have taken place in my life. And so much of that has to do with the love that I have of people, the hope that I feel in God, and merging those things and finding tools like within chaplaincy that help me understand those hard things. So today I'm not going to swim in the deep end very long. I like to look at the deep end of the pool and know how to swim in those places, but I'm a yellow personality, so I don't like to hang out there very long. So thus the picture on the slide. So we're going to talk about how to love your life, how to have a freaking amazing life, even when maybe other people are raw around you or you feel raw. How do we actually move through that? So, you know, when I talk about feeling raw, it's like the you after you stub your toe. You know the you I'm talking about, right? Or like some people, it's like in the morning, maybe they're not morning people and they're like, don't poke the bear. Okay, so they're not themselves yet, right? We've got some laughter over here. People know what I'm saying. Or when you're hangry, I have a son, if he's 6'2", yes, I birthed him, 6'2", he's a bodybuilder. And if he gets hangry, hungry, and angry, like, just don't talk to him. Or if you haven't had your coffee yet, or you're not a morning person, we're not always our best selves, right? So if you're taking notes, in fact, I'm going to ask for one of those. Could you give me one of the handouts? I'm going to follow along with you. Hopefully you've gotten the handouts as well. I want you to be able to take some notes and really take note of yourself, and then maybe you do that on the front side, and then maybe on the back side you take notes about other people that you love, but maybe have these stubbing the toe moments, or so that you can know, how do I deal with someone else when they're raw? How do I deal with myself when I'm raw? And really, what does that acronym stand for? So we'll talk about that. I did go into chaplaincy just about 13 years ago. That wasn't, what I wanted to do when I was a little kid. I don't think anyone wakes up and says, "Hey, I want to be a grief whisperer," right? However, as we get older, what we recognize is there are realities about life, and as we learn to step into our callings and our God-given gifts, we're going to find ways to actually serve people in those hard places. And so I'm sure many of you have come to your career path or your education based on hard things you've experienced, or ways that you want to encourage and equip other people too. So that's kind of been my path. I did also work in the addiction recovery space for quite a while. I have 8 children and 9 grandbabies, which I love. I did serve as Mrs. Utah 2007 with the platform Recovery is Possible. I really believe that people at any point in their lives can change their stars, and we're just one decision away from a better life. That's what I truly believe. So my goal today is really to change how you see some things and then give you tools. I think my hope is not just to talk about things, but actually give you some tools, kind of like football players when they do this spring training, right? They have these micro tools or micro movements that they practice over and over again that become muscle memory. So I want to give you, again, this acronym RAW, so that this can be kind of a muscle memory or a micro movement where you're always thinking about RAW and that acronym, and how maybe it's the cashier at the store, or maybe it's the driver on the freeway, or maybe it's a moment where I'm not quite myself. You can quickly move out of that. So I want to give you some really usable tools. Sometimes we think, especially in the corporate world, that feelings are a soft topic, right? We think, oh, well, that's not really important. in the grand scheme of things. We look at ROI, we look at return on investment, and is that really valuable to talk about? But I'm gonna say, you know, especially after COVID, what we have seen is that feelings are an essential topic. We are looking at a world right now where the wheels are coming off the apple cart. People have been strained for too long, and it's the emotional strain, the feelings that really need to be healed in so many areas, politically, racial, emotionally, even with money, people being so afraid. So we can see that emotions and feelings aren't a soft topic. They are the topic, right? So think about that. Feelings aren't just for hippies, right? We kind of put feelings sometimes over here, but we recognize very quickly that if we want to impact people for good, if we want to be true influencers, it will be through harnessing feelings. Real influencers and real leaders and real healers, you look throughout history, they are the people that were able to articulate goodness to people's feelings. So if you want to have a lasting impact on people, number one, you're going to have to understand your own feelings. And number two, you're going to need to be able to speak to other people's hard feelings, right? Okay, so as we jump in, I want to teach you, I'm going to teach you a little bit of French. How's that? French, you know, is different than English. So if you were to say, I am going there, in French, you would say, I there am going. So it's a little bit of this, this change in the structure. There are two sentences that I think about a lot in French. I'm going to teach those to you. Ça m'inquiète, and it means it me unquiets. Ça m'inquiète. So I think about hiking. Any of you avid hikers in Utah? If you're out and you see a stream and it's clear, you know if you step in that stream, it's going to unquiet that stream. It's going to get muddy. And often emotionally, we have people that step in our stream, basically, and unquiet us. Or maybe it's 5 minutes of the news that we saw, a news story that really unsettled us. Or maybe it's a comment that someone said at Thanksgiving dinner that you're still thinking about. So there are things that happen to us that unquiet us, that leave us unsettled. And it's really helpful to understand what that feeling is. Okay, I'm unquieted. So that's the first one. The second one is ça me manque, which actually means it's like I miss something, but they say it differently. They say it's missing from me. So when we miss a loved one and we say, oh, I'm melancholy, or I miss that person, what we're actually saying is that person is missing from me. I have an empty place. So when we say, ça me manque, something's missing from me. And as we look at these two sentences, I think they epitomize what's going on in our world today. And especially in hospice and dementia care and end of life care, is I am unquieted and something's missing from me. And those two questions are so helpful when we ask ourselves, what's going on? What unquiets me? And what is missing from me? What is giving me that homesick feeling? Now, I have a theory about this homesickness, but it's so important that we ask ourselves right now. So go ahead and write this on your paper. I'll take a minute. What unquiets you? And what is missing from you? Now, I have a girlfriend. She is Her name is Marcella, and she is writing a book called Wake Her Up. And she says, when you feel like something is missing from your life, it's probably you. So I love that. When we feel like something is lacking or something, there's an emptiness, sometimes we're just not showing up. Maybe we're in a life that we don't love. So we're going to talk more about that. So those 2 questions, make sure you write them on your paper. Hopefully you got this handy dandy. It's in the chat. Awesome. Thank you. Okay, so what unquiets you and what is missing from you? And basically, are you loving your life? Yeah. I think back even to when my late husband was ill. And he had this incredible way of just bringing joy into even these crazy moments with treatment and hospitals. Okay. So I was able to see and have a front row seat to someone that lived full out, funniest man on the planet, and someone who loved their life till the very last minute. If you have never seen that, look for it, because there are examples of that. Even if you have to look in history, what does it look like to live a fully loved, a fully whole, a fully joyful life? And the people that do that, it is not because of what life has handed to them. It's because of what they've chosen. I think they know the raw secret. So we'll talk about that. So are you loving your life? Well, what if you're not? What if you're sitting there in your office or at home and you're like, well, it ain't that great today. Okay. Well, I want to share a story with you, true story. This just cracks me up every time I think of this story. So I have a friend, he's a new friend after this experience. His name was Ian, and he was living in Australia. And he was 6 years out of a terrible divorce. So not very happy. He's still stuck in it. He is like, why can't she love me? And I hate my life and I can't function without her, and just miserable. She had totally moved on. He was 6 years in this just suck, right? And he wasn't, it's important to know, he wasn't suicidal, but he hated his life. So he thought, well, if I don't want to like tap out, I'm not done with my life, I just hate the one I'm in, what are my options? And he decided to do something no one had done before. He decided to put his life for sale on eBay. So you may have heard about this. This is back in 2008. He was like, okay, I have my flat, my condo. I could sell that. I have a motorcycle. I have some parachute gear. I'll introduce you to my friends at the local pub. I'll even get you an interview at my job. Somebody can just buy my life and I'll just step out. They can take it over. I just want to leave, right? So he puts this on eBay, right? And in about 5 hot seconds, the media was all over it. What? There's a guy that's selling his life for sale on eBay. He didn't expect that to happen. And so all of a sudden he was getting calls from Good Morning America, People Magazine, the BBC. Here he is in Australia doing these recordings because the media was like, what do you mean you're going to sell your life on eBay? And he said, well, I don't love what I'm doing. I don't love who I am. I want to be a totally different person. I don't love what I'm going through. I don't even like my stuff, my job, it's like, I want out. And what do you think the second question was from the media? asking, how, what does this mean? And then they were asking, okay, so if you sell your life, what are you gonna do then? Well, he hadn't even thought about that. He was just like, I want out. So he had to think about it really quickly. So he quickly wrote 100 things that he would want to do. 100 things that were like walk the Great Wall of China, things that were, you know, just bucket list stuff. So he wrote out 100 things. He said, I'd love to see a whale give birth. I would love to parachute at night. I would love to, and so he wrote out 100 things because the media, like the very next day was, hey, what are you gonna do? So he wrote out 100 things and he said, here's what I'm gonna do. Because he was asking quite a lot of money for his life. He said, you buy my life and then I'm gonna do 100 things in 100 weeks all over the world. Because he thought he was gonna make a lot of money. So every interview, he said, hey, if you want to help me do 100 things in 100 weeks, I have a spreadsheet, an Excel spreadsheet at this website, this web address. Now, this is 2008, right? So way back when things were black and white, right? The dark ages. So, but he was saying this on these media events. He was saying, if you want to help me, go to my website. So at that time, my late husband was sick. And we saw his story. And we thought it was really cool that somebody was doing that. And it was fun to hear someone's struggle and also to see that they were still dreaming. So we contacted him. I sent him a message and I said, my husband and I live in Utah and we think you are just crazy awesome. And what you're doing is crazy fun. And we would love to help, but we didn't see anything necessarily in Utah. But if you want to, if you need to come through Utah, if you want to see something in Utah, let us know. We know people, we'll help you out. So right away, I got a message back from Ian saying, you know, there's a couple of things in Utah I would like to see. I'd like to see Kennecott because he worked in the mining industry. And he said, and I'd love to do the bobsled in Park City where we had the Olympics. So I said, okay, well, just tell us when and we will make those things happen. So time went by and my late husband actually passed away. And Ian was coming to Utah. So I got some friends and my family and we did take him to Kennecott. And the next day we took he and his lady friend at the time to do the bobsled in Park City. Now this man, you just would not believe what happened to his life because all over the world, people were jumping in to help him accomplish his goals. So he did sell his life, not for very much money, I'll have you know. The first buyer was a 15-year-old that had no money. So I had to go to the second, and then the second in line opted out. The third in line opted out. It was like the sixth person in line that actually got his apartment, his bike, his parachute gear. So he sold it, not for very much money, but he had 100 things on the schedule all over the world. And with the little bit of money in his pocket, he met thousands of friends who helped him all over the world accomplish those 100 things and more. Kindness made it possible. He even did a TED Talk in Vienna. He traveled all over the world to see different things. This is a picture of us doing the bobsled in Park City on his website. He then wrote a book. And then Disney offered him $240,000 for the rights to his story, and he bought an island in the Bahamas. Now, he says it was a hot mess island, but he and his wife, he did get married. They took over the island. They did incredible work on the island, and then they were able to sell the island. Crazy. And he is a professional house sitter now and runs House Sitter magazine. So go figure. So here you think, you know, I don't love my life. I don't love where I'm at. I don't love where I'm living. I don't love the people I associate with. He made one decision. I'm making change. And his whole life and his trajectory changed. And I love that story because he did something so random that people were inspired to follow him, to follow his story, to take chances even in their own lives, to get involved, to participate, to help someone else. So think about this, where you're at right now, or even where the people are at that you serve, it may be a bad day. It doesn't mean it's a bad life. It doesn't mean it's a bad life. Change can happen. So maybe you're thinking, well, I'm not gonna sell my life. Your kids come home, it's like, where's mom, right? Okay, so maybe you can't sell your life, but let's look at this. What if you had one free day? What if, okay, it's beautiful outside today, but what if you didn't have to be here? What if you had one free day? And I'm not even gonna say like, oh, and $1 million, because that's not, no. Let's just say you have one day that is just yours. You don't have to worry about anybody else. You don't have anything on your to-do list. It is just your day, one day. What would you do? So I'm going to take a minute. I want you to write this down because this is important. If you had one day, a free day, what would you do? Would you go hiking? Would you go ice fishing? Would you go kayaking? Would you sit at the piano all day? Would you journal? Would you go to a hot yoga class? Would you have your nails done? Would you go to a museum? Would you go to a library? Think about it. And I want you to write down 3 things that you would do, because we're going to come back to this, okay? So if you're in the chat, which I know a lot of you are, type in what are the 3 things you would do. Really think about it for a minute. Can't sell your life, but you have one free day, and not $1 million, but just one free day. What would you do? Can you see some of the answers if people are typing in? Okay, no answers yet. Okay, so I'm going to be like, was it Jeopardy or do? So write in the chat what you would do if you had a free day. Okay, and then I'm going to see if Elizabeth can shout out some of the answers. Martine, what would you do if you had a free day?
Go to the mountains.
Go to the mountains. Okay, what would you do in the mountains?
Just be there.
Just be there.
By the stream.
By the stream. Just be. Awesome. Do you have a certain spot you love to go to?
Yeah.
You've got it all picked out.
Yeah.
Okay. Would you write? Would you just be?
I would write.
You would write. Okay. Okay. Any answers? Elizabeth, what would you do?
I love hot yoga. That would be so great.
Oh, awesome.
Doing the loved one.
Okay, so if you had a free day, you would do hot yoga
Yeah.
with a loved one.
And I'd love to go to the mountains too.
And the mountains.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Something spiritual.
So we don't have a lot of white space in our
Get a
lives.
massage.
Get a massage. Awesome.
Explore somewhere new.
Oh, explore somewhere new. Awesome.
Out to eat Italian food.
Oh, out to eat Italian food. Yes, that would be awesome. Okay, we got more coming in.
2-hour massage.
2-hour massage. That's awesome.
Cook.
Cook. Yeah, enjoy the cooking experience. Sometimes we're going so fast we don't get to really just linger in that cooking experience.
Hike up to a sunny spot and read.
Ooh, hike up to a sunny spot and read. I love these. You guys, if you haven't put in the chat, do it, do it, do it. I want to make sure that you have at least 3 things, because we're going to come back to this. This is really important. 3 things that it's kind of like your playlist, right? Your free day playlist.
I would sleep.
Sleep, yes, yes. Or even take a nap. Oh my goodness. Us adults, we need naps.
And she goes all the time, and after she slept, she would fly to the beach and spend the day swimming in the ocean.
Oh, the beach, yes. Swimming in the ocean, so cathartic. Oh.
Run my daily 6 miles, and then fly back to my home and relax by my fireplace. Reading
Running, reading, all of these things. Again, it's okay if you haven't jumped in on the chat, that's great. Maybe some of these ideas have kind of spurred thought for you. But I want you to think about, again, maybe you don't have $1 million, but you have a free day, 1 day. Because here's the problem. We don't give ourselves free days, right? We don't. It's almost like we can't even fathom giving ourselves a free day. Every day is so full of stuff for other people and stuff for our jobs and stuff. And some of the best medicine is a free day, right? Is white space. Because in the white space, that is where we can feel our feelings and move through them. And I'm going to talk about that. But so I want you to think about that free day, okay? And I'm gonna plant a seed here. What would your life be like if you gave yourself the gift of 1 free day a month? Shocker! So even to think about that, it's exciting, right? Where there's nothing else. I give myself a free day once a month where it's just me. I'm not obligated to anybody else. I just get to do me. What if so think about this. If you gave yourself permission and you actually put it on your calendar. So maybe it's the 15th of every month, or maybe it's the 27th of every month, right? At the end of the month, where you just say, this is my free day. This is me. It's my day. What would your life be like? And it sounds like the tectonic plates are shifting thinking about this. It's such a big deal, right? If you could give yourself a free day once a month, what would that do for your life and your relationships? What would you feel after that day? What would you feel during that day? It's powerful. Powerful. You know what your soul needs. Even by entertaining the thought of having a free day, whatever you're going through right now, that's the pharmacy. That's the prescription. You need a free day. You don't need to sell your life on eBay, but you do need some white space in your life. And that's really the best gift we can give ourselves and the people that we love. So basically, you need to get unraw. Okay, and I'm going to talk about what raw means. We see people around us melting. Home struggles, work struggles, health struggles, school struggles, financial struggles. Everyone feels raw right now. It's like we're all walking around with a rash on our souls, right? It's not comfortable. What I see, having worked in a lot of the hospitals here in the state of Utah, is I see behavior that I would normally see in the ER. So people are in intense pain, emotionally, physically. They're in panic. People are angry, hostile, divisive. But more I see people are despondent. They feel disillusioned, especially when it comes to politics and kind of the world environment. People feeling in shock. And then you have on the other side, you've got people in shock, but you also have people that are like, I'm going to control everything in my life and I'm going to control everybody else. So that's kind of what we do when we feel, you know, that rash on our souls. We're just going to control everything. And that doesn't work either. So one of the things that I've noticed is when we're raw, we just do more of what we habitually do. So if we are coffee drinkers and we start to feel raw, we're just going to drink more coffee. Right now, we've got some laughter here. You know what I'm talking about. And if you're raw and you habitually go to food, what's going to happen? You're just going to emotionally eat more. Or if you undereat, you're going to undereat more. Does that make sense? If you're a control freak, you're just going to control more. If you're a yeller, you're just going to yell louder, right? And if you tend to self-destruct and go into this shame, when you're raw, you're going to do that more. So it's important to understand what raw means. Think about it right now. Where am I raw? And where's my life messy? So it's really interesting when we have raw emotions, we become either hyper responsive or we become hypo responsive. So think about this right now with yourself. When you're raw, do you become hyper responsive or do you shut down, become hypo responsive? Now there's a lot of data around this. I would point you to what's called the still face experiment. You can find it on YouTube. It's really fascinating. They've done studies where a toddler or a child has a rapport with a parent, and then they have the parent do a still face for 2 minutes. And the child is either going to become hyper responsive, where they become loud and screechy and kind of assert their physical bodies, or they shut down and they just don't engage anymore. And we do one of those two things as grown-ups too. We've learned it from childhood. So anytime we are raw or triggered, we're going to either be hyper responsive or hypo responsive. So let's talk about this acronym RAW. And again, if you are using this, I've got some spots there. RAW stands for reactionary or reactive, then anxious and weary. I'm going to unpack each one of those. I'm checking my time as well. It's really, and you know, you're going to have to give me a signal on the time because I neglected to start that. In fact, how much time do we have to go? I want to respect your time, but I want to fit a lot in there. Got 15. Okay, so we've got 10. Okay. Okay, awesome. So RAW stands for reactive or reactionary. So think about this. Reactionary means we're front loaded. We go into circumstances, maybe the holiday meals, right? We're already front loaded. So we're already set up, agitated a little bit, thinking about conversations or people that we might experience, right? So when we're driving on the freeway, we see people that are reactive, people that are going to have this knee-jerk response. They've gotten on the freeway and they're already feeling rage or anger. You might be reactive because you're in fear and you're being protective, right? That's still reactive. You know, we think about fight, flight, freeze. Those are reactions. But there's also another reaction that I've been learning a lot about, which is called fawn. And that means like smiling and dancing when everything is awful inside. And so fawn, when we react in that capacity, that's where codependency happens, people pleasing, right? Y'all, you're shaking your heads. You're like, yes, that's me. So when we're reacting, sometimes we're reacting and we are smoothing things out. We are making everybody feel good except ourselves. That means we're not being honest even. So understand that when we're reactive or reactionary, it can fake us out sometimes too. We may be reacting by covering things up, right? So understand, where am I reactive and how does it look when I'm reactive and raw? So let's move into A, which is anxious. Now I would say anxious has more, reactive is that knee-jerk response. Anxious is actually like almost like, I think of a chemical imbalance in your system, okay? When we are anxious, we have that cortisol, we have adrenaline. So there's just this undercurrent of agitation. Anxious is also paranoia, worrying about what other people think on social media or in person. Anxious is also looking with, we've got these dark doom and gloom glasses on, right? So we're going to see things through a different filter. We expect a negative result. And so when we are raw, we can't see the best outcomes for the situation. We're going to look at it differently. And then the last one that I want to address with people that serve in these helping capacities is weary. We have a tendency to give and give and give from that love and that soul space, and that's great, but we hang out in weary a lot. So when we're weary, that is also a physical exhaustion. It's like we've held space for people for so long, we just don't have any more to give. And so we burn out, we become resentful. So I'm going to say that. We have impaired sleep. So when we're sleeping, we're not actually resting because we're too tired to really rest. We feel disheartened. We feel discouraged. And what I think is really fascinating is we are the encouragers. But what happens when we run out of courage because we're giving it away, we feel discouraged. So if you're feeling weary and your God-given gifts and your calling in life is to be an encourager, wow, it goes really dark fast, right? When the encourager has no courage, we can't do what we do best. We can't do what we've been called to do. And then again, physical fatigue. So the 4 questions I would say is getting unraw. What was it that triggered me to make me raw? What am I feeling? Like, where in my body am I feeling it? What am I thinking? And what will get me unraw? So getting unraw. When I'm stressed out, I am not going to go to IKEA, right? IKEA stresses me the heck out. So when you're raw, like don't choose that stuff, because that is more toxin. That is more like, that's like salt on a rash. Don't do it. When you know I am raw, I'm reactive, I'm anxious, I'm weary. Even if you don't have a free day, you set a timer on your phone. I have a list in my phone. What can I do in 5 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, 3 hours, 6 hours, and a full day? I have a list that I wrote on paper, and this is what I would want you to do right here. What can you do in 5 minutes if you're feeling raw? So I have a certain playlist on my phone. I also have pep talks that I listen to. So what can you do in 5 minutes to get unraw? What can you do in 30 minutes? What can you do in an hour? What can you do in 3 hours? So it might be in the morning, early, maybe it's at night, hot yoga class. Maybe it's just driving to the mountains. We can do that in 3 hours. What can you do in 6 hours? Maybe then you'll actually take a hike or get a massage and journal. So think about what are those things that you can do to get unraw in your life. Do that. That's your prescription for today. Do what you need to get unraw, reactive, anxious, and weary. And also, I would say, understand which of those things catches you the most. Each of us is different. So you might be, when you get raw, when you get emotional, you might just become really snappy. People around you, at the workplace, or at home. So reactivity is your biggest struggle. Others might have a proclivity to be more anxious, and they just hold it in their stomach, and you have gut issues, and you know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about, right? So you hold that anxiety and you worry a lot. Or you might just be weary and be giving too much. So understand your personality and then have a playlist that is like your medicine cabinet. I know I need 30 minutes to get unraw, and that's my medicine. I'm going to go to my list and get unraw. You don't have to sell your life on eBay. But what I do believe is if you make these conscious choices to know yourself, know what unquiets you, understand what is missing from you, and you have this playlist of things that are they restore your soul. That's your restore list. And you do that, your life actually will change because you'll go into it more whole. So I want to share a story with you. Growing up, I loved Barbie. That was the thing, right? So my sisters and I, we all had Barbies, and we all had those little teardrop suitcases, stuffed full of clothes and like one shoe. But we just loved Barbie, right? I had even like the Barbie head where I could do her makeup and her hair, and like I cut her hair, it doesn't grow back. So Barbie was a thing. And then as I got older, I learned about the woman who created Barbie, Ruth Handler. And when I learned her story, it inspired me to a whole new level as a woman and going through her things. So Ruth Handler, back in the day, she and her husband and one of their friends put their names together and decided to start a business called Mattel. Now, in the beginning, Mattel did not sell toys at all. In fact, they sold wooden picture frames. So weird. And then at the end of the day, Ruth's husband would bring home the leftover pieces of wood, and he would fashion dollhouses. Well, one day Ruth came to him and she said, honey, we have baby dolls. We have dolls that really help little girls think about motherhood, prepare to be good moms, where they can bottle the baby, they feed the baby, and they can change the diaper, and they can rock and nurture the baby, and that's lovely. But what if there was a doll that looked like a woman, was shaped like a woman, and this doll could be dressed in attire indicative of career choices? What if this doll could represent nurses, airline pilots, mayors, police officers, hairdressers, things that would inspire little girls to get an education? Now, the idea of creating a doll with breasts that represented women was just so not conservative, even though God's been doing that since the beginning. But she said, I think it will really help little girls to want to achieve higher things. So she created this doll with breasts and got it out into the marketplace, and boom, wouldn't you know it, Barbie's quickly on the Fortune 500. Mattel through the roof. Girls all over the world loved Barbie. Now time passed and Mattel grew, obviously more toys, more exposure, and Ruth and her husband retired. They did very, very well. But one day the doctor called. This is back in the days of this kind of phone. So Ruth, the test came back. It's positive. Ruth, you're terminal with breast cancer. Now, how ironic that the woman who created the first doll with breasts was diagnosed terminal with breast cancer. I'm sure that brought up a lot of raw feelings after treatment, after treatment, after treatment. A lot of those raw feelings, feeling reactive, feeling anxious, feeling weary, feeling disillusioned. Why, if I've created something that has helped so many, why is this now happening to me? It would be very easy to be stuck there. But Ruth, knowing what she knew about confidence and wholeness and beauty and possibility, she went back to the drawing board. And she created some of the first prosthetics for women with breast cancer. So sometimes we can look at our lives and we can say, how awful and ironic is my life? Things that can happen to us, feel like they just shouldn't happen. And we can walk around feeling weary and anxious and reactive and frustrated. And that keeps us from bringing our best selves to life. When we take those moments, those free days, and we say, I want to get whole. I want to restore my soul. And I know that's my job. If I'm unquieted or something's missing from me, I'm going to find it. I'm going to heal what is raw. I want that to be whole. Then we will be infused with new ideas, new perspectives, new power to encourage people, and new tools to equip other people. So when we do that, our lives change, and we get to love our freaking lives like nobody's business. So thank you for letting me speak to you today. Do we have any questions? Send in any questions or comments. Again, here's what I would say is the prescription. Actually write out, 5 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, increments that are realistic, right? And then write out what heals you. When I'm weary, one of the things I like to do, not in the winter time in Utah, I like to take my shoes off and walk in the grass or the sand. Sometimes when I'm out hiking, I'll take off my shoes and just go barefoot so I can feel the ground. And sometimes when I'm weary, that simple 15 minutes, 30 minutes, that changes everything for me. So your list is going to look different than my list. For some of you, it might be, you tie flies for fishing. And if you spend 30 minutes, like, you're a different person after you do that. So think about, what does your restoration list look like? And then when can you do your next free day? So definitely want you to put that on the calendar. Other questions? Okay, it's been a joy to be here. Please keep in touch with me. You can find me on social media, Tiffany Berg Coughran. Love to hear from you and hear your experience, because I know that these things actually do work.
So. We'd like to thank Tiffany for this wonderful presentation. We look forward to seeing you next month, the first Friday of the month, and I believe it's January 7th. Anyway, it's the first Friday, so we'll see you next time. Thank you. Thanks, Tiffany.
Okay.